Strengthening materials for ephemera flowers. Hi, this is Beverly Cole. Welcome to my studio where ideas are at play. We're going to start with some materials that if you tried to cut them with your big shop machine or similar machine, you may have difficulty because they're so soft or they're so thin and delicate. And some of these are very old. So I've come up with a technique to make them more flexible and more usable, where they'll last a long time for you. Here I'm showing you cheesecloth flowers and also old music sheet flowers and some burlap that I've stiffened. I also use these in my collages, on cards, on scrapbook pages, and in journals. Here's a piece on a handmade heart that I made on this collage. This is a piece of the cheesecloth. First it was tea dyed, and I put it on one of these mats that I have here, and I did notice that no matter what I have on the mat, it's going to transfer. So if you're concerned about that, make sure your mat is good and clean. I really didn't care because I like things that are a little bit aged looking or messed up and distressed. So a little paint's not going to hurt. So let's start with this piece of burlap. What I use is Elmer's glue. Simple. I buy it by the gallon. It's acid-free, so it works great for all these projects. I put some in a little container, and it makes it easier for me to use. So here we go. Using a brush I don't really care about, one that's pretty good size, I'm going to just coat this entire piece of burlap with the Elmer's glue. You can see the edges there. I use those, like I showed you, in my collages and things. It's really fun. So I make sure that I cover every square inch of this with glue. I'm pressing it into the weave to make sure that I'm getting a good coating, because I want to make sure every thread is coated. Some come off and that's all right. You just kind of push them out of the way. I'm just pressing it in and brushing it on. And since it's Elmer's glue, I'm not worried about how much I use because it's relatively inexpensive, especially around August, September, when the kids are going back to school. I think you can get bottles of it for like $1. All right, so we're going to coat the whole thing. And notice that I am using a non-stick Teflon craft mat, which I leave it on while it dries, and it peels off simply. It doesn't peel off as easy right now because it's wet. But now I'm going to coat both sides with the Elmer's glue. And I have to apologize. I've been a little under the weather, and I still have a bit of a cold. So here we have the whole thing coated. Any glue you leave around the edges will simply peel right off, or you can wipe down and replace it on your mat, and then you won't have to worry about that. I never bother. Now these are old book pages, and because they're so thin, I like to put two together. And again, coating it with the Elmer's on the mat. And now I'm going to take another book page, and you'll notice that I start to put it one direction, but I flip it around because with one upside down on top of the other one right side up, if I use these to make pockets for my journals, when I fold them, the back side will be right side up when I fold it onto the other side. If that doesn't make sense to you, give it a try and you'll understand. So again, coating it with the Elmer's glue. Simple as that. Just making sure that every bit of it is coated. Give it a good coat, flip it over. Don't forget the back. We want the entire thing coated. And what this will do is give it a really nice sheen and make it more flexible so it doesn't tear. Book pages are sometimes so thin and you know, they're not made with acid-free paper back in the day, so I pretty much can cut some of them with my fingernail. They're very, very fragile. Now this is a piece of ye old scrapbook paper that I've had for probably, let's see, before 1990. So it's plain on one side, and you could stick two pieces together. I should have thought of that before I did this. I actually just thought about that today when I was editing this video. But yeah, I could have put two pieces together, and I've got a ton of this gingham. This is old Close to My Heart paper because I used to sell Close to My Heart back then. So I've got gingham coming out my ears, color after color. And I love gingham, especially black and white. Okay, so now I left these out in my lanai to dry. Tried to keep my cats away from them. And what happened was as they dried, I flipped the whole mat over so that the back would get some sun too. And lo and behold, they dried faster that way when I flipped them over on the mat. And they came off very simply, peeled right off. So here you can see that they're so flexible and usable. So now I'm going to take out one of my favorite steel rule dies, actually two of them, but they both have the same print. One is bigger. This is Tim Holtz bigger, supersized tattered florals, and I have the original tattered florals. There's also a thin die tattered floral border, so you can get these in a variety of sizes, and you can work with them together and get such a variety of sizes and flowers. It's really great. Okay, so now we're cutting them out of all the different materials. And notice I cut off those borders to save. Here goes the book pages. And they come out beautifully. And don't throw away those stencils that you created as a byproduct, because they're coated. You're going to be able to use those for a while. Okay, we're going to start making our flowers now. And I like to use Distress Oxide or Distress Ink. And that one there is a little bit too light. I think that was burlap. This one is walnut ink, I think. But anyway, I like to distress with the inks around the edges. If I put the ink on first and then use the Elmer's glue, because it has water in it, would have reactivated the water-based Distress Oxide and could have given me a kind of a neat finish, but I like putting it on later. And if you're concerned about it rubbing off, you can always spray a coat of clear spray paint or sealer over your flowers, but I don't bother. So here you can see, by mixing the sizes of the different steel rule dies, you get a variety of shapes and sizes. So now, using a variety of materials, here we're adding some of the aluminum cans that I spray painted in my last video, along with the different layers of the strengthened materials, and some beads from an old necklace that I got at a yard sale. I'm making a flower. And this flower is going to be able to be used in a variety of ways. I could put this on a journal. I could put this on a Christmas tree, or make a wreath out of these. There's so many things you can do with these, and of course put them on cards. Now for the second flower, I'm using another color of Distress Oxide ink. And because of the Elmer's glue, this flower is able to be handled without it falling apart. If I didn't have that Elmer's glue on this, even a doubled layer of these pages would be able to be just ripped apart. A layer of burlap, a layer of metal. I remember making this one in the last video. So much fun. Be sure to watch the video on flowers where I use the alcohol inks to color them and make these vintage colors. I have a friend, Margaret, who is a snowbird and an artist, and we have sent each other care packages of materials for our journals and cards and collages, and she sent me these little beads, and I found a little bell in there, so I'm going to put a bell in the center of this flower. Really cute. So now, using more Distress Oxide, I'm adding some golden color to this layer, and the one for the center of the flower, my book page center, and I've got a beautiful piece of music paper there, and some burlap, and the alcohol inked piece, and they're just so beautiful and so easy to cut. It's really fun to coat things with the Elmer's glue. Now some more ink. You notice right then it wiggled a bit. That would have ripped right off. So it really does help. So just layering, and I have so many pieces to play with. It's really fun. And I use E6000 glue to glue them together. There's our flower number 2. And now for our third flower. I'm using the technique I talked about in the last video, where I just use that ribbon curling kind of motion with my Sharpie or anything that's smooth to curl the petals on the flower. This flower is going to be stacked, but the smallest of the 3 as far as diameter. And of course, you can make these tiny too. You can make them any size you want. And you can use all the things that you've saved to put in the centers. Your buttons, beads, all for embellishments on the flower, ribbon, loops of ribbon around the edge. I mean, the sky's the limit with these things. So this one's made out of a lot of metal and some burlap and a page from a book. So here's where I'm putting on the final touches with the E6000, the little tiny beads sent to me by Margaret, into the center of my little flower here. And look, even by itself, that little flower is adorable. Imagine a whole bunch of those on the front of a page. Or you can put a line of them on a barrette or a bobby pin. So many things you can do. So I'm just gluing these together, making sure I'm happy with this flower. And now I've decided, instead of having these curl up, I'm going to have them curl up, then curl down. So this piece is going to be very close to the center of the flower, and I want it to be very three-dimensional, very three-dimensional. So I curled it quite a bit, which is so easy to do. I mean, every flower you make is going to be unique. So if you're liking this video, please give me a thumbs up. And I would love to hear from you what you can do with these flowers. If you have any other ideas to do with steel rule dies, I'd love to hear from you. Oh, so many things to play with. I'm so excited. And thank you so much for stopping by. See you next time. Bye.